Hey guys, what's up? My name is Rachel. Welcome back to Auxhart Gardening. The garden probably looks very different from what you've been seeing because recently I had to pull everything out for the first frost of the season. And as you can see, it has not been consistently cold outside, which has been very interesting as far as watching the garden develop into the fall. Right now it looks kind of empty, but there's actually a ton of little babies out there. Out of all the babies in the garden, this is my favorite garden baby, Miss Cade. So over here where their tomatoes were on this trellis, I have a bunch of baby fava beans. A lot of these are younger than I would have liked, except for a couple that survived. I tried planting quite a few as the tomatoes were still here, but it turned out that a lot of them just were not getting enough water. And that's a little bit because it didn't rain for quite a few weeks in a row, and my sprinkler broke at exactly the same time. So this is what I've got, and I planted my fava beans at about this time last year, which is how I know that they're going to be a little late. But I did actually end up getting a harvest from them anyway. So I think overall it is going to be okay. It's just not going to be ideal. This next row is supposed to be straight, but I couldn't quite get it straight. Right now it looks very sparse, but it is kind of thickly planted with some large brassicas. At the front here I have celery, which I'm growing for the very first time. I saw it at the store when I was picking up some extra plants, and I was like, why not? Why not try it out? And this is right next to the cabbage that I've been leaving since last year. And for some reason, the cold seems to be what finally killed it, even though it is supposed to be a cold-loving plant. And as we go down the row, I've got some Brussels sprouts. I have some cauliflowers and broccolis mixed in here. I have some purple lettuce. And all of these plants in this row, except for the lettuce, are store-bought plants because my home-started brassicas were tiny. And I wasn't sure whether or not they were going to actually have time to get big enough to have a harvest. I did still plant them, but they are in a different section, and they are kind of the backups and slash test plants. Back up here at the front, this front trellis is the only one that looks like it actually has some stuff actively growing from afar. These are my peas, which look great, except for the fact that they haven't shown signs of flowering yet, which I find to be really strange considering how healthy they look, but it could just be the lack of water they've had. I very recently got rain for the first time, like I said, in a few weeks, and so they got a little bit of water. These were also outside during the rain. These are the leftover starts that I didn't plant. Anyways, something I find interesting and concerning about the peas is they look a little limp to me, even though they just had a bunch of water. And it hasn't been freezing at night for at least a couple of weeks. So I don't really know how to interpret this sign from the plant that it is slightly unhappy in some way. I wouldn't think that it would be overwatering because the ground here drains pretty well. I've never really had a problem with that. But that is sort of a sign that I might expect from overwatering, which is weird. These lettuces down here at the base, though, look great. I am pretty happy with these, and they're just about big enough now where I can start pulling lower leaves 2 or 3 at a time to make little mini salads. I did get a chance to try these radishes that got planted here by accident because I let another plant go to seed. They are huge, but they are unfortunately incredibly spicy and not really like an edible flavor for me, probably because they did grow up in so much heat, which can really do that to a lot of different brassicas, make them way more bitter than they might normally be. But what I'm gonna do is wait for the next frost and try and harvest them right after that and see if that makes them just a little bit more palatable. Then as we come back here to look at where I planted carrots, we find a bunch of weeds. And there are little carrot babies in here. I think that they are getting enough light through this cover, so I'm tempted to leave it on just so that the cats don't dig around in here and accidentally kill them all. And I sort of feel like I can pull these weeds, but I have to be so careful not to disturb the roots of the actual little babies that I want to have, which is why I haven't really put a lot of effort into pulling most of these weeds. And if y'all remember, there were some purple potatoes that came up late, didn't grow to full size before the frost. I went ahead and pulled the ones that I saw, but this one must have been just covered enough by this sheet that it got missed, and it survived the frost probably because of the cover. So it's continuing to grow, and there is no actual imminent frost in the forecast, so I might as well let it keep growing. I got some like tiny like little potatoes from the other ones, so I might still get like a couple of little ones from this one as well. And then the last row here is the one with my homegrown transplants, except for a few there in the middle. They're a lot harder to see on camera because of how tiny they are. But we've got this one, there's one over here that is competing for smallest with the weed next to it. We've got a few different ones going down here, and then some more store-bought Brussels sprout starts here, as well as the year-old Brussels sprout at this point, and the one Brussels sprout that I started that I managed to get in the ground in time for it to be like the right size coming into winter. Out of all the things that my plants have to overcome to grow in this garden, I think being sat upon by a cat is one of the more relevant things that they have to deal with. Interestingly, after the frost, there is not a lot of change here in the raised bed herb garden. While most of these things are frost hardy, especially things like the cilantro, which I am intentionally growing in the cold, I did expect to see at least the stevia die back a little bit, but I guess it wasn't enough of a frost to really damage it, so it looks like it's going to be able to finish making its little seeds and continue getting to a good point in its life cycle for next year. The most exciting thing though is over here. I actually am harvesting out of the garden currently. My raspberries are actually edible. Look at that. And they're sweet, and they taste like raspberries should, with that little bit of tartness. I was not expecting to be harvesting raspberries on November 1st, but here we are, and it's cool. There's only a few ripe right now, but there's a bunch of branches that have some that are just about to ripen. So I think I'll have enough for fresh eating, like as many as I want fresh eating. But I'm not sure if this is a jar of jam that I'm looking at. But considering that I had expected 0 raspberries, this is great. Lastly, I did want to show you guys my onion starts. I am starting my own onions from seed this year, and I'm not sure if I've started them soon enough or if they'll survive, but this is what I've got, and I'm thinking about getting some starts just in case. I mean, these definitely, they're alive, and they might make it. We'll see. I don't know. But just wanted to update you guys on the fact that, yeah, this is what I am trying, and we'll see together whether or not it works out. Alrighty guys, that is all I have for you today. There will be more as these things actually start growing, but seeing as I just transplanted everything, there's not a whole lot going on. Although you can still expect weekly garden tours because, like I've said before, I think showing the fact that there's not a lot going on is actually really important, especially for new gardeners who might look at their space and try and compare it with others and feel like they are behind or not doing enough. If you guys want to support my channel, as always, liking and subscribing is a big help. And if you want to go above and beyond that, I do have a Patreon linked below. You can check out all of the cool perks that I have set up for patrons. And as always, I really just deeply appreciate any support that you can offer. Thank you guys so much for watching, and until next time, happy gardening.